There's no doubt tensions are running high out west. Last week, a federal cattle wrangler was threatened by masked men. Men wearing hoods pulled up to a BLM employee and showed him a sign that read, "You need to die." One of the men then pointed a handgun at the BLM wrangler. After the threat, the men drove away. There was no evidence linking the masked men to Bundy's supporters. But doesn't it make you wonder what's going on here? But we all know where this anti-government sentiment started, don't we? The FBI is currently investigating the armed standoff which occurred near Bundy's ranch back on April 12th. They are looking into threats against law enforcement officers, illegal weapons, and anti-government militias. The seed of hate against the federal government, it's growing out west, and things are getting worse. More and more people are joining the ranks to protest the Bureau of Land Management. It can be blamed on one thing, as I see it, and that is the conservative media. You see, the conservative media hates Barack Obama so much and can't stand the liberal platform so much that they want to view them as a threat. And the best way to do it is to give the microphone to people like this, platform them up for 2 weeks on a cable network. Don't back down until there's unrefutable evidence that the guy is a racist. Well, we'll forget about that. So now we have got government officials in this country wondering, what do we do if we go out and try to enforce the law and people are openly armed with assault weapons? These folks, I think, want something to happen. They want the government to react so they can react, and then who knows what the hell's going to happen. So how do we diffuse all of this? Maybe it would be good if the network in question that was so in love with Cliven Bundy would say something to these folks who are illegally on the land with the ATVs. You know, maybe you ought to back up and go through the normal channels of protest. Do you have representatives in Washington? Where do they stand? Are they with this crowd? Because no one knows where this is going to end, and no one knows how it's going to end. And it's kind of scary. It has the roots of a movement that won't end really peacefully. I hate to say that, but this is how it goes, isn't it? If they were minorities, would they be fired upon? Would they be forced to abide by the law? And are we now seeing a culture develop in America? Well, you can go ahead and do what you want. We'll just decide which law we're going to uphold. Get your cell phones out. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question: has the conservative media fueled a dangerous anti-government sentiment? Let me bring in MSNBC contributor and former Montana Governor Brian Schweitzer. Governor, good to have you on tonight. Your thoughts on what would settle all of this down? You've done a lot with, Bureau of Land Management as a governor, being involved in situations like this. What scares you about this? What would diffuse it?
Well, even more important, as you know, Ed, I'm a third-generation rancher here in Montana, and I have a master's degree in soil science, so I understand these resources. Leading up to the Dust Bowl, it was folks out west that used the land for whatever they wanted, for as long as they wanted. They overgrazed their cattle, they diverted the rivers, and it created the Dust Bowl. And so now we have professional managers who are managing your land. This land belongs to the United States of America. It belongs to somebody in New York just like it belongs to somebody in Utah. And what these professional managers are doing on the ground is saying, what is good for the resource? How many cattle would we allow to graze here? Where is it appropriate to have ATVs? How can we best take care of this land as a trust for all Americans? And now this bunch, this Cliven Bundy bunch, coming over from Nevada giving advice to people in Utah on how to deal with the BLM, my God, that's like the Aryan Nation giving advice to Donald Sterling. I mean, this bunch, the Bundy bunch, are grifters. They haven't paid their fees. They haven't cooperated with the federal government. They say they don't even recognize the United States government. And these Tea Party, militia, foxtrotters, they're a bunch of ne'er-do-wells. They aren't ranchers. They aren't loggers. They aren't people that have legitimate businesses on the land. You wouldn't get ranchers to stand next to Bundy. Yeah. And people who are in the mining business and the oil and gas business on federal land, they wouldn't stand next to these people because they make a living on that federal land and they listen to the rule of the land.
So the ulterior motive here is to make the Bureau of Land Management and the government, the boogeyman here. I mean, these people really aren't upset about any closed trails or any ATV access issues.
Well, they might be, but there are millions of other acres that they can go to. Why do they have to have that trail? Some 30% of Montana is owned by the government. I think 60% or so of Utah, some 80-some% of Nevada is owned by the federal government. There are places all over the West to recreate. Some allow ATV, some don't. Some allow hunting, some don't.
Yeah.
Some allow grazing and oil development, some don't. So go to the places that the professionals have decided this is the place to do what it is that you like to do.
So, Governor, this seems to be the beginning of standard operating procedure. Just defy the law and wait for the government to do something. So what's the solution here? I mean, is the government just going to pick and choose what to do with these malcontents that show up with high-powered automatic rifles?
If you point a gun at law enforcement or federal officials, you should have no expectation of this ending good for you. Now, we don't want to have a confrontation with these folks. We just want them to go back home and cut wood or ride their motorcycle or whatever they do for a living. But if they continue, they're going to get rounded up and they'll be prosecuted. And as law-abiding citizens, we can't have it any other way. We're a land that has rule of law. We're not Yemen. We're not Somalia. We're a land that has laws, and we all have to follow those laws. We don't get to decide to which one we're going to follow and which ones we don't. That's what a civilized society does.
Well, and the scary element here is that that's what it seems to be evolving to. This is far from over. Governor Brian Schweitzer, good to have you with us tonight. I appreciate your time.